Do you need plants for your shrimp tank? We're going to find out today. We got a ton of plants here at Flipaquatics, and we're going to go over, do you need them, what types you could use, and all the benefits of having plants in today's video. What is going on at Shrimp Cures? This is Rob with flipaquatics.com, and today we are talking all things plants for your shrimp tank. We're going to talk about all the different benefits and everything that you need to know when considering, do you want to keep or should you keep plants with your shrimp? All right, so I know what you're thinking. One, duckweed. Oh, it's the worst plant. Literally, I just got it all over myself. It is like, once you have duckweed, you never get rid of it. But there is a huge benefit to having plants, which duckweed truthfully is the best at, and that is eliminating NO3s in your aquarium. So if you guys don't know this, there is a thing called the nitrogen cycle. The nitrogen cycle is when a fish poops, it produces ammonia. Ammonia then turns into NO2, which then turns into NO3. The only way to get NO3 out of your aquarium is water changes or plants. Now, the reason duckweed is so good at removing NO3 from your aquarium is, and this is floating plants in general, but we'll talk about floating plants later on in the video, is it is touching the air. Now, what I mean by that is it is literally in contact with the environment, the atmosphere, whatever you want to call it, and the CO2 level in just regular air compared to water is so much higher. So duckweed is able to multiply so quickly, and it's such a hardy plant that this sucker will literally eat NO3s like crazy. When you remove this, like if I take a big net full out and throw it away or feed it to my goldfish or whatever you want to do with it, that is the same as doing a water change, because the duckweed has grown by consuming NO3s, which is what you're trying to do by doing a water change. And then by removing it from the system, you have literally picked up and removed the NO3. So one of the biggest benefits is NO3 reduction in your aquarium. Okay, so you don't like duckweed, and that's okay. There's plenty of other options out here. This is one of my favorites. This is dwarf water lettuce, a really great plant, easy to grow. Again, we'll talk about floaters later on in this video, but floating plants are the perfect plant for reducing evaporation. Now, if you guys didn't know this, we've talked about it a lot. Evaporation, it's when water evaporates out of your aquarium. It doesn't take the minerals with the evaporation. So what happens is the water level will decrease, the level of minerals will increase, and then it will kind of throw off your parameters. So one thing is you can put a lid over your aquarium, which is fine. You know, a lot of people do it. I don't like having lids on my aquarium. I like them being open. And so floating plants take up a lot of the surface area on top of the water, and that reduces evaporation. So huge benefit of having aquatic plants, specifically floating plants, is a reduction of evaporation. One of the other huge benefits of keeping plants in your aquarium is if you have fish, like in this tank we have some guppies, you need to provide hiding places for your shrimp to get away from your fish. So that's where like a plant like moss or another real bushy plant, there's a lot of stem plants, and we're gonna go through all the different types of plants that you can keep and why you should keep them. But hiding places is a really important reason that you need plants. And another thing to consider is shrimp do something called molting. That's when they shed their exoskeleton. And then for like, you know, a couple hours after they molt, they're trying to hide. They're trying to hide from the males. If they're a female, the males try to chase them down and breed them. If they're a male, they get bullied, they get picked on. And so they're trying to find a safe place where they can just get away from everyone else. The more plants you have in your aquarium, the more hiding places that you have, the safer your shrimp feel and the better off you're gonna be. So hiding places, really good reason to keep plants. All right, so let's talk about my number one plant, and that is floating plants. And the reason it's my number one plant is because it checks literally every box. I talked earlier about how it being in contact with the air, the atmosphere, it is able to grow a lot quicker, which means it consumes the maximum amount of NO3s. It also sits on the surface of the aquarium, which reduces evaporation. And then lastly, most floating plants have really good root systems. This is probably the one exception. I mean, it has a decent root system, and we'll talk about the specific plant, but the root system that hangs down from the top of the water actually provides really good hiding places for the baby shrimp, the adult shrimp. It gives them a good feeding ground. And so floating plants are really great. We talked earlier about duckweed, dwarf water lettuce. Now, this is a floating plant that is actually extremely beautiful. It's called red root floater. We grow it here at Flipaquatics. And the cool thing about it, and this is what my wife loves about it, is it has these little like micro flowers all over the place. So I'm sure Em will get some B-roll, but like there are little baby flowers everywhere. Just a really pretty plant to look at. And this is an easy one to control in your aquarium. Whereas like duckweed, once you have it, you probably can never get rid of it. Redwood floaters is definitely one that you can control easy. There's a bunch of other options. Salvinia is a favorite one of mine. We have 3 different types of Salvinia, which is Salvinia cuculata, Natans, and then there's another one too. I just don't remember it off the top of my head. But Salvinia is a really good plant as well. And there's a bunch of other options out there. If you really hate duckweed, every once in a while we have enough giant duckweed to sell, and it's literally like 10 times the size, and it grows just as fast. Really good plant. And so there's a lot of options, but floating plants is definitely one that I would keep with shrimp, and honestly with fish in general. Just aquariums, because it does have so many benefits that are going to make you love it. So before we get too far into the video, I do want to say, one, you don't really need plants, but I'm going to go over a bunch of plants today that you can use, and I really want your guys' opinion. So I have a list of plants that I think are my favorite, the ones that I think work best in an aquarium. But what is your favorite plant? Especially if I didn't mention it today, let me know. Let me know why it's your favorite down in the comments. I want to hear from you guys. And I'm always open to seeing what you guys think and maybe telling me I'm wrong. I don't know. We'll see. So the next plant type that I think is super important to keep with shrimp is moss. Now, this technically isn't our shrimp setup. This is our breeding rack for guppies. But the reason we have so many different types of moss over here is because guppies are similar to shrimp in the fact that they have babies. The babies need a place to hide. They need a place to get into. Moss is a very slow grower. Now, it won't consume a ton of NO2, so it's not great there. It really won't help with evaporation, but it is by far the best when it comes to hiding places. And there's so many different options. Like I think we grow like 6 different types of moss here. Favorite would be subwasser tang, which I'll actually take you over and show you some caridina tanks that we actually keep subwasser tang in. But you can see like this stuff is just absolutely beautiful. It creates hiding places, but better than hiding places is moss is a very like porous material almost. So it has like a lot of like, I think they're called like nodes or something. Whatever comes off them little fond. I don't know what the name is. Don't judge me. But it has all these little branches, leaves coming off of it. And that's where a lot of microorganisms can live. A lot of food can collect. And so the baby shrimp will actually find the moss and use it as a feeding ground. So it becomes a really good place for baby shrimp, a really good place for shrimp to hide, a great place after they molt, so on and so forth. So moss is by far one of my favorite plants, one that I highly recommend. And the best part about it, extremely low maintenance, easy to keep, don't need a ton of light, don't really need to fertilize. So it is one of the easiest plants to keep. And so I highly recommend you getting some moss for your shrimp tank. So if you guys are here and you're not subscribed, like what are you doing? Come on, it's free, it doesn't cost you a thing. We do these Shrimp Saturday videos every single week. And listen, we want you to be a part of the family here at Flipaquatics. We got so much stuff going on, so many things going on, and I don't want you guys to miss out. So hit that subscribe button, become a part of our family here at Flipaquatics, and join it. Come on, let's go. So I had to show you a subwasser tank, what it looks like in the aquarium. This wasn't a caridina tank, but it was the best representation of what I think subwasser tank should look like. And this is actually my white peacock endler tank. These guys are doing good, breeding away, having fun. But really cool plant, really cool structure of the leaves, really fun moss. And it's actually not technically a moss either, but we're gonna consider it a moss for this video. And just a really, really cool plant that I highly recommend you getting if you want something a little unique that isn't quite a typical moss. So I wanna walk you through and show you some plants that I would consider low light, easy to keep, because the thing with shrimp tanks is you don't want to be like hardcore fertilizing. You don't want super high CO2. You don't want to like go for like a high-tech system. That doesn't mean you can't. It's just not the approach that I would take, especially if you're a beginner. So I'm going to show you some plants that I think are really easy to keep and plants I think would be really good for a shrimp tank. First one is definitely this guy. This is Anubias Nana Petit. This is a really, really easy to keep plant. It doesn't need planted in substrate. It can be grown on driftwood. It can be grown on rocks. And it's just a really cool plant. Say small. Most shrimp tanks, people try to do the smallest tank possible. So that's why it's a really good option, because it is tiny. And there's other types of plants like pretty much all the different types of Anubias, like Nana, you got Barterai, Nana Golden. They're all very easy to keep. Probably the hardest one to keep would be the Nana Golden, just because like it tends to have some melting and things like that. Hastifolia, if you want a big one, definitely you can go with that. The next type of plant that I really want to talk about is these guys. These guys are a little bit heavy as far as root feeders go. But crypts in general, this one is Crypt Flamingo, which gets really cool colors on the leaves. This is immerse grown, but you could see like just super, super pretty. And this plant is one that doesn't need a ton of light. It does need a decent amount of fertilizer in the root, but that's where you can get root tabs. You can stick them on the substrate, put the plant on top of it, and never worry about it again. So there's a bunch of different types of crypts, and that's another really great option. And then there's, where are they at? This is by far my favorite plant for keeping in a shrimp tank. Again, because it's just really easy to keep. And it is called Java Fern. And this is just a really fun plant. This is just what one portion would look like. These guys actually grow by a rhizome, just like Anubias. So like this rhizome right here, it's kind of the root structure. It'll grow like this and new leaves will come off of it. And it will also have babies. Let's see if it actually has any. I don't see any, but like on the back side of the leaf, it'll start having babies here as well. And you can pull those off and replant them. This doesn't need planted in the substrate. It can just be put in your aquarium, floating around. It can be attached to wood. It could be attached to rock. Super easy plant to keep. Highly recommend it. And then the next thing that I would recommend would be like, I mean, anything over here is like carpeting plants. I wouldn't recommend it. Swords, pretty heavy root feeders. Probably wouldn't recommend those either. Let's go back this way. There's a couple stem plants that I think you guys would really enjoy. And I just want to give you some options. Let me see if I can find them. Boom. This one. This is a super fast grower that I highly, highly recommend. Is this pennywort? No, I always get pennywort and moneywort confused. This is pennywort. So pennywort is really easy plant. It just grows like vines, and literally you can cut this anywhere. And then this would be its own little plant. It would grow its own leaves. Like you can see there's literally roots all over the place on this guy. And you could section this out, grow it all over your aquarium. It grows really good above the water surface. So like what I've done in the past is like, I'll put it right in the corner and let it grow over the side of the tank. It looks really good. So recommend that. And then the other one would be moneywort. So pennywort and moneywort. This one's not as pretty as that one, but it's an extremely fast growing plant, extremely easy to keep. Another one that I would recommend for a shrimp tank, just because like it is such a quick grower. It's going to consume those NO2s. It's going to create, really cool wall in the back. And so those are just some low light plants that I think would do really good in a shrimp tank. It doesn't mean there aren't other options out there, because I'm sure there are, but those are ones that I would kind of like gear myself towards if I wanted a low tech kind of easy setup. And I think that would make a really good difference in your aquarium. While I don't recommend fertilizing a shrimp tank, because I do think it's good to stay towards like easy plants, low light plants, plants that don't need a lot of maintenance, there are going to be situations where you do need to fertilize. And that's where like a shrimp safe fertilizer is super important. What we use, and this is actually our product and we designed it for this specific reason, is we use Shrimp Leaf Fertilizer by Shrimple. And the difference between this fertilizer and any other fertilizer is it has a low amount of NO3s. You don't want to ever have your NO3s get above 40 parts per million. Anything higher than that, you're going to start having molting issues, stress on the shrimp. So in a natural aquarium, you're going to have NO3s regardless. So we have a low amount of NO3s in here, and then there's no copper. So we believe that plants do need copper, but they can get it through natural ways. Like they can get it through the food that you're feeding in the aquarium, the leftovers, and there's much better ways to get it than actually putting artificial copper, manufactured copper into a fertilizer, into your aquarium. I think that's going to create way more stress. It's going to create way more issues if you do it long term. So little bonus tip, if you are going to use a fertilizer, which you don't really need to unless you actually need to, which your plants will tell you, then I highly recommend doing one that has low amount of NO3 and no copper in it. That would be my recommendation. A little bonus tip for you guys. I had to come over here and show you guys a big fish. I don't even remember his name, but it's from one of our Crystal Club members, Will. He brought him here. We adopt him. He's got his own tank. But I figured I'd give you another little bonus tip, a little something extra. If you guys love houseplants, pothos is one of the best plants that you can use in your aquarium. It is such an easy to keep plant, and all you have to do is make sure the rhizome is touching the water so that it can grow roots. And this sucker will just pull endless amounts of NO3 out of your aquarium. So that's what I got for you guys today. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Hopefully you learned something. I appreciate you guys being here. As always, God bless. We'll catch you guys on the flip side.